So Darrell Issa, who is the chair of the Government Oversight Committee in the House. And remember we heard, like, at the beginning of this year that Issa was gearing up for all sorts of hearings, was going to investigate the Obamas, and it never really panned out. And I think part of the problem is that Darrell Issa has too many skeletons in his own closet. This guy was arrested, I think, multiple times for car theft. Back in the day, back in the 70s. He was arrested for carrying an illegal concealed weapon. The guy's a two-bit crook. And there's going to be more and more stories that have come out. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Because he has a relationship with a company that is involved. I'll get to this next week. But for today, it's enough to know that last month, Darrell Issa wrote a letter to government regulators. And this is what they do. This is how they intimidate government regulators. Because if you don't do what Darrell Issa says, he's going to call you up onto the hill. And you're going to have to testify. And they're going to come after you. And your job is just going to be a nightmare of providing documents and all that. Not doing your job. Just trying to sort of like get out from spurious accusations from Darrell Issa. So he writes this letter to government regulators in Ben Bernanke to complain about new regulations on financial firms. These non-transparent and possible inefficient rules. How are rules non-transparent? What does that mean? They're written down in the registry. What's non-transparent about these rules? Place our fragile economic recovery at risk while doing little to prevent a future financial crisis. So if you have rules that in any way curtail what financial institutions do, that's going to hurt our economy. I mean, these guys live in a bubble. Like 2008 never happened. It warned that the new rules, which Goldman Sachs, incidentally, has spent millions of dollars lobbying against, could harm the operations of firms such as Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. And coincidentally, Darrell Issa has a chief staff member, the senior aide to Darrell Issa, was a vice president of commodity compliance for Goldman Sachs just in 2 years ago. And so that nobody would figure it out, he changed his name after he left Goldman Sachs to become Darrell Issa's chief aide. First it was Peter Simonyi, and now it's Peter Haller.
Hey, what happened?
I'll tell you what happened. This guy is still working for Goldman Sachs, except for he's just doing it right now with a different last name and for a different boss, and he'll be back in no short order, I can promise you, with a significant raise. You understand that for people on Wall Street, we talked to Taibbi about this, that working for the government is the functional equivalent of having a job and saying, like, hey, if I go get my master's, I come back and work here, I'm going to get a raise. For them, it's just like, I'm going to take 2 years off. I'll go work for a congressman. When I come back, I'm going to triple, quadruple my salary. Bingo. There's going to be more about Darrell Issa.